You are listening to Let's Be Honest with your host, Just Johnda. Hello and welcome to Let's Be Honest. I'm your host, Just Johnda, and tonight we are here for one of our fun episodes where we are going to get into this week's episode of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and also some hot behind the scenes TV on some of your favorite Bravo-lebrities and there's just been stuff going on between the ladies of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Real Housewives of New York, Real Housewives of Atlanta, and the network itself. So we're going to get into the hot tea first, and then we're going to cover the episode. And I have one of our new co-hosts, especially for our Bravo pieces, my girl Missy. You there, Missy?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Hello, and we also have someone just entered the room. Hey, Dose, welcome to the live tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and as we go through, we'll come back to them, or I'll try to catch them as we go through. Dose says, sup. Okay. All right. So before we get into tonight's episode, which was, let's face it, we kind of expected that things were just kind of going to be a little filler for a while with some maybe like forced drama for a few weeks until they build up to whatever they're going to do with Mary. And of course, the Jen Shah issues and the aftermath. And that's pretty much what we got tonight. What do you think, Melissa?
I thought it was really, really boring. Just really boring. I think Jen Shaw was really trying to create a storyline for herself, maybe as a distraction, but it was bad. Like nobody really believes you're doing any work on yourself for Ramadan. Nobody's believing any of this, including the people right in front of you. So
Yeah, and
hate it.
Dose just did a question mark forced drama. Well, yeah, we say forced. Forced drama, manufactured drama. I think it's all pretty much the same. It's just that thing that all reality shows do. So I'm certainly not going to say is just the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I mean, that's what these shows are all about, and especially 13, 14, what maybe even 15 years into this whole Real Housewives universe, let alone just the whole reality TV game altogether. It is very much forced drama. That's why, or manufactured drama. That's why we all get so excited when someone comes up with a new, for those of us who like reality TV, of course, when someone comes up with a new concept and you can tell that the people are you can tell that the people are just really really green until again the network screws up and keeps bringing them back, and then they think they're stars and they start making up stuff, like the first season of Love After Lockup. We all loved it. It was fresh, it was green, the people were crazy, but not, again, not crazy trying to be stars. I mean, they really were just regular people in these ridiculous situations. But at any rate, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole of analysis because we know what we're getting when we watch these shows.
I will say
So
one thing. I will say one
mhm.
thing. The only drama that I think is real is I think that Meredith really is mad. Meredith and Brooke are really mad. I don't think they're playing it up for the camera necessarily.
Yeah, I definitely, well, I think that's again one of those things where I definitely think that she's really mad. I agree with you on that. But where you step into that sort of Housewives thing is, I think that there is some of it that may be played up a bit, and it could just be the mere fact that in real life, if you were really upset that someone did that to you and screwed over your family or talked about your kids or your whatever, you just wouldn't mess with them anymore. But and I think you and I talked about this the other day, that because they're on these shows, and obviously this is what they do. They have to get together, they have to interact and whatever, which is really the fake part, that then ends up making situations that person legit has that person has a legit issue, that makes even someone like Meredith's issue then end up looking a little fakey, even though as parents you and I can both understand it's not. But it's the fact that you're forced into that manufactured situation of dealing with someone you wouldn't F with anymore if you're that upset with them. Do you think that's part of it too, that makes it kind of seem a little, a little off? Missy, you still there? I think we're having some connection problems with Missy. You still there? I see it's still saying you are connected, but is your mic on? Well, I'm going to keep talking, and then Missy, if this doesn't correct within the next minute or so, are you still there? Are you there? I feel like I heard you.
I'm here. Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
I can hear you now. Did you hit mute or something accidentally?
I have no idea, but I'm here. What I was going to say is that I just think that with this group, I think Salt Lake City is a very boring place.
Hmm.
Um and I think that especially with the pandemic, it probably got even more boring.
Yeah.
And it's
Because
not
they
like
couldn't
these.
even be around each other to try to form genuine relationships, because when we know that other than Meredith and Lisa, there are no genuine relationships among this group of women. This is truly a cast, which it does not make for a good show about a group of people who are supposed to be friends.
And they're not just bumping into each other, and I think that's kind of like what has Meredith angry, because these people know that there's this issue with her and her child, and they're essentially seeking out the Jen Shaw and making plans and filming with her. Not that they're like at a store and bumped into her, or there's
Hmm.
a big event and they're all there. They're like, come to my house. I'll
Yeah.
meet you at your house. Which I can see that would make me like really kind of angry.
Exactly. And that's the tough part for us as viewers, and maybe not for regular viewers, but it's certainly tough for people like you and I as more critical viewers, because we kind of know what's really going on with the fourth wall down, which is that these are scenes. They are
Hmm.
places where they literally, because these women have said it. And it's not just the Real Housewives. It's all of these shows nowadays. Anyway, the way that the whole reality TV stuff is gone, and probably even more so with COVID, because they've got to be so much more careful in terms of where they plan, how they plan, the number of staff and camera people that can be in one place at one time and all of that kind of stuff, because you still want to make it look intimate when really you're worried about everybody getting the pandemonium and dying. So
Right.
so there's a lot of issues at play that end up making it on the somewhat artificial, and then still angering for the person who is upset, because you have the fact that you are signed on to do the show, and so there is an element of you recognizing that some of this you are going to have to suck up, because nobody made you sign on to do the show. You signed on to do the show. You all knew that you were coming back and you were going to do the show. Okay, fine. You got free will. You signed a contract. That means, and you know how this works because you've already done it for a season, that there are going to be scenes and a call sheet where you are going to have to show up and be with these women. However, with Meredith, of course, with producer manipulation and all this other stuff, you have the fact that the producers are making sure that she stays as angry as possible because they're using the one friend, that the one genuine friendship that she actually has, to
Right.
kind of poke at her, which is the friendship with Lisa. And Lisa, of course, wanting to be in as many scenes as possible to make that cash, is following along with what the producers are telling her to do. It adds insult to injury. So it's like, even though I know this is my job, that doesn't mean that shit still doesn't piss me off.
Can we also add that when when Lisa brought over the new girl to Jen Shaw's house, I know Jen Shaw was like, "Oh, they got this Asian girl to replace me, huh?"
That's exactly what they did.
I mean, it was so obvious and just weird. And
And
she
then
kept on
you go
saying,
Asian too. Could we get somebody like? Could you get? I don't care if at this point, if even if they got another white girl, because God bless them. And then this is one area where we got to give Salt Lake City a little bit of credit. Unlike all the other shows that either started out like all white or all black, well, Atlanta had, their one token Kim, but other than that, they either start out all white or all black, and then over the years experimented with sticking someone else in there. At least Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, like one of the whitest places in America, at least started out from the gate with some color injected in there. So I wouldn't have been upset if whoever they brought on as Jen's potential replacement was, let's say, what everybody else in Salt Lake City looks like, another white person, because Jen is still there and Mary is still there.
but
But
I would have
they
just,
bring in an actual Asian girl. It's like, did they do an Asian casting call? Like, what the hell?
I feel like they told all of the cast members, look in your phone book and see if you have any like minority friends and see if they want to do this too. And
And none
that's
of them
what
did.
happened.
And the closest they came was Lisa's children going to school with this woman's kids.
Yeah, and even this woman, like,
Hello? I think, again, we have technical difficulties. So, as usual, I'm going to talk until Melissa comes on. But,
oh, I was saying, can you hear me now?
yep, perfect.
Oh, I was saying that, like, I don't even think that the Asian woman's money is as long as they would have hoped it to be.
But let's be honest though, no pun intended for the title of the show. I think her money is probably longer than a couple of them. Like, I definitely don't think Lisa has as much money as she would like people to think, especially when you look at, I don't think we've really seen her at home this season, but when we saw her at home last season, it definitely didn't look like it was all that. Now, in fairness, Heather seems to live rather modestly, but we do know that Heather maybe lives modestly because that's just her personality. Because on the real, her business is a multi-million dollar business. And even if she didn't have the business, she was married to wealth and has kids with
Right,
that wealth.
right, right.
So I think from a money standpoint, we know Lisa, I'm questioning her coin. Whitney, was working for her husband. That's how they met. And she seems to be trying to grind just as hard to make something out of something, just like all the rest of the housewives have tried to make, you know, use this 15 minutes to make something. And then we know Jen Shah's finances are trash.
Right.
Uh,
But but but
so
but you at least have the grooming so that someone thinks that you are the person.
that's true.
And this new person does not have she doesn't have that. I always say that like with a lot of the white people, you can always tell by
Hmm.
their hair.
Yep, you can.
And
Even if
and
not the clothes per se, because you know they'll do, but even although sometimes you can tell by the clothes, because even when they dress down wearing a t-shirt and jeans, the t-shirt and jeans might be grungy and dirty, but they're also like a $200 t-shirt and a $500 pair of jeans.
right. But they to me the haircut, the dye job, whatever they're trying to go for, even if it's not my style, you can tell that they had like money to do it and maybe the nutrition to have it happen and have it look good.
Hmm.
Um, where and that's a hard thing that
Yeah, it's
to
hard to
try to
fake.
fake. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
do you think too with that part of it too maybe cultural, because she certainly didn't, there's no question, and nor does she fake it, that she certainly didn't come from money. So anything with her, and it's one thing I appreciate compared to some folks who are new money and try to fake like they're not new money. Any money she has, there's no question that is new money considering where she came from.
I
Um,
mean, I guess so, but okay, can we also just add whose wedding is she singing at?
oh, that was a mess. When she started singing, and I know this is going to sound hella insensitive, but when she was singing, the only thing that went through my mind, I was like, God help me, but I am thinking of those like Asian karaoke places. Like, because when she started singing, she was a total stereotype. Like,
It was
every
bad. It
it
was
was
bad.
so bad. I'm hoping for her sake that that was some mess just for the cameras. Maybe she's singing in Vietnamese at these weddings. I don't know, but that was
But she's dead serious though. She
she
was dead
was serious.
serious.
She was. I can't remember what she sang. Now it's driving me crazy. But she was serious as a heart attack. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
But I do think that is cool since we're on her. That I like the fact that she casually slipped in, and she did it in a way that I thought was really cool in terms of not like kind of downplaying her husband. Last week I was kind of like, okay, they're living real good or whatever, and who knows? I mean, maybe his chiropractor business in uh out there is the bomb, and maybe he owns a chain of offices. I have friends whose family owned some Cairo offices, but they own several, so obviously they do very well. Because when she said he was a chiropractor, and I'm like, okay, you flow in Real Housewives style, but then when she said that she had a series of medical clinics, then I was like, okay, so that was a nice little, I dug it. I liked it. It was a nice little sly way of slipping in there. No, but I brought some cake to the table in
Right.
terms of how we're living, and for all we know, which I think would probably make sense, is if she's no longer working and he's a chiropractor, depending on what kind of medical offices she had, they're probably his chiropractic offices.
Probably.
Or he converted them into that. I mean, that would make sense to me, but who knows? But either way, I just like the way that she did that. I didn't think it took anything away from him. I found it very reminiscent, but to me, she did it in a more smooth and genuine way, but it still reminded me a bit of the new woman Mia on the
Oh
Real Housewives of
yeah.
Potomac with running the multiple offices. Although I think the difference with Mia is that at least based on what, which again I appreciate, what she admits her background was, her being able to do what she has done in her own right was still helped by the fact that she married her way out of the strip club. But again, I'm not mad at it. Get it how you live. If he wanted her if he wanted her and she wanted him, and it, that resulted in a come up, God bless him.
Well, okay,
So,
speaking of business, can we just talk about how Whitney is trying to make her little iris bow thing a thing? But
trying to totally make it a thing, and that's why I question their coin, because not only is she trying to make it a thing, but she is hustling hard, like super hard, the way that any of the other housewives who tried to use these shows for their glow up used it, because this is week 2 of us hearing about it, which means that not only is she trying to make it glow up, but she has probably, and again, it speaks to them needing the money, that that she's mentioning it so much, that she signed over a portion of the rights to that um to Bravo, because you can tell which of the housewives did and which of the housewives didn't,
yeah, yeah,
because the contracts changed after those early days of Bethany Frankel totally glowing up skinny
yeah.
girl, and the contract didn't say that she owed Bravo anything. Now, of course, Candy and Lisa Vanderpump, they weren't going to play those games with them.
Right, right,
But
right.
the rest of them, you can totally tell who just said, you know what, bump it. I need this money. And if that means that I have to sell part of my soul to Bravo to get it, then so be it. Her mentioning it, and to that degree, 2 weeks in a row. Because remember, last week was like a damn commercial. They even showed her
Yes.
skin.
Yeah, and then this week, like opening scene, hat on, like that's like all you see. But can we also talk about how I feel like her son is too young to walk home from school, I mean.
I didn't even. You know what? There were points where I just didn't even pay it much attention, because I got to be honest. And you of course heard me say this with Riri last week. I didn't even remember that Whitney had freaking kids. Literally until last week, and I watched this show religiously last season. As you know, we did in fact we did podcast on it, I think maybe about midway through. And
Right.
then of course on our FNDD page on Facebook, we talked about it every week with all the gossip. In all of that, and mind you, Whitney being one of my favorites coming out of that season, I managed to not notice she had kids.
But
And
that kid looks so young. He looks so young, and
maybe he's
are,
just short.
she's like, "Are you gonna mind walking home from school?" I'm like, "It's snowing. Y'all are in Utah. That's where they snatch kids. You know, every Dateline with a missing
It is
kid,
in
they're in like
Utah.
Utah or
They're either
someplace."
in Utah, Nebraska, or Colorado.
Yes, too much,
Oh my
too
gosh.
much.
Now you got me thinking of all the murders that I've heard about in Utah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and then speaking of murderers and possibly serial killers, can we just talk about Mary? Can we talk about Mary for a
Okay,
second?
Mary and the crazy eyes, because at this point, I think I'm just going to call her Crazy Eyed Mary. That's where she
If
is.
Mary has a dungeon like where she's holding people in her basement, I
That
would
is
not be
probably
surprised.
where her husband is. He ain't in Florida. He, her husband is in that dungeon. Mary built one of those dungeons that Kim Kardashian's neighbors are complaining about.
Yeah, and you know what? When they were showing her home, right? This is gonna
Okay,
sound
that
so.
home is so jacked up. It reminded me of my paternal grandmother, God rest her soul, but she was a hoarder and she would have all of these weird statues and stuff like that, like the cherubs and stuff that, older black people think are all like that
Cute.
they're cute or they're worth something or whatever. And you could tell that some of that stuff was probably because remember Robert was married to her grandmother, so you
Right.
could tell that some of that stuff probably came with Robert from his life with the grandmother, like that picture of her grandmother and Jesus.
Okay, but you know that
You
that
saw
house
that
when
last week, right?
yeah, I did, but you know that that house when you look at it, you know it smells like dust and cigarette smoke. You
It
know it
smells
has
like
to.
dust, cigarette smoke, and when you go in the closet, mothballs.
Yes, yes, it was.
So all of that,
It's really bad.
all of those designer clothes that she got off the last chance rack, all smell like mothballs.
They do it, and it's like super. It's super disturbing. Like where is she buying her furniture? Like where do you buy those rainbow chairs? I mean,
The
she's like
rainbow
dead
chairs, I
serious.
called it the bubblegum room because there was all of these jars of bubblegum.
I'm telling you, like she has some serious
She's
issues.
when she said that she must have been on her period when she bought that thing in her bathroom. I was like, girl, you were not just on your period when you bought that thing. You were in full on mental distress. And
With the
not just that
green
thing,
room,
everything.
the green room.
But
Let me
isn't
tell you something.
isn't there green carpet all through the house though? All I saw was
I
green carpet.
I don't even know, but this weekend I went to go see that movie, like The Eyes of Tammy Faye Baker or whatever, right?
Oh,
And I
I love Tammy Faye Baker. I live for her. I got to see
so do
that.
I. It was
Did you
good.
see
It was
that at
good.
a theater or was it
Yeah,
on?
I
Did you
went to
see
go
it?
see it in the theater. I was the only one in there because I think I'm the only one into Tammy Faye. But there's
No, you are
actually
not. I live for Tammy Faye. Like the whole PTL phenomenon, I remember that coming on Channel 29 every day. When like you would especially see it if you had off school because it would be on like starting in the morning.
well,
Yeah.
Mary's living room looks like a set from that movie. I'm not kidding.
You know what else it reminds you of? Not just from that movie, but the LuLaRoe lady, because she's like a Tammy
Yeah.
Faye.
Yeah, she is.
The
She
LuLaRoe
is.
lady would totally have that bubblegum room.
And why is her mantle for her fireplace all jacked up? Like who was
I
gnawing on that? What
I
is going
don't
on?
know. Like Robert.
I just
Because I'm telling you now, with the dungeon theory, I'm not entirely sure I believe that Robert is in Florida. And there was a comment that she made. She said, okay, because I wrote it down because it was funny. Because Mary is unintentionally funny, which makes her even funnier. She said, being in her house during the pandemic, she said she felt trapped being in her house during the
yes, she
pandemic,
did.
kind of felt like a marriage.
Okay. But like can we also talk about her? I mean, I know with my stepson, we have very frank talks about like girls and stuff like that. But what she said she was saying to her son, I'm like what? First of all, your son doesn't leave the room.
Yeah,
Like
basically.
that might be some depression, or maybe he just doesn't like you. But maybe he just doesn't want to hear you talk about the JJs, like fishy
Well,
smelling the JJs.
Yeah, and it's so weird that she, like, the whole dynamic is weird because this same son last season, he's, buying, like, what was it, like a Prada bag or some nonsense for the girlfriend, and I'm
Yeah.
wondering if that's the same girlfriend or the same or just the same situation, and I bet it was, which may be why he's depressed, that led to the whole drama with her getting charged this past spring.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
and think about it, and by the way, everybody, I'm sorry, I'm saying Riri. Missy is an attorney like I am. Excuse me. So last spring, this came out during the summer, right around the time it came out around late July, early August, right around the time when the folks went back to court on the Jen Shaw case, and her case, the date got continued, blah blah blah. But at any rate, since they were gearing up for the show to start, of course they're like putting out all the juice, and
Okay.
so Mary got arrested, or, charges brought against her in the springtime, but I guess it just really didn't make big news. And I suspect it probably had something to do with the son, especially based on her statement, because she was basically charged, and I've represented people for these charges before, so I get it. I think it was contributing to delinquency of a minor, and something like harboring a runaway or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Where it's sort of like they're not quite saying that you kidnapped the child, which to me made it even more obvious that it probably had something to do with the son. And then couple that with the fact that Mary only made one statement, but the statement she made for once was actually effective, at least to me, because she said, it's, the family has issues, and it's, I didn't do anything wrong, and it's not my fault that this family has issues and can't get their stuff together. So that totally said to me that there was something going on, and we've seen it a million times, right?
Yeah.
Something going
Yeah.
on, and then the girl comes to him. He lives with his mom, and he got charged too, which makes sense, that because when they filmed this, Mary said he was 17, so he was probably 18 at the time. He got charged as well with contributing, so that made even more sense, that, maybe the girl was like staying with them. Mary may or may not have even known, or even if she knew, she didn't know that she ran away. And then the people called the police, and she got in trouble, and blah blah blah. And that's probably why it didn't make the news, like didn't make big news, because it's obvious what happened.
Right, right.
So
But if my child ran away to Mary's house, I
oh
mean,
yeah, I'd
I'd be
call the
calling
police
the
too.
police.
Yeah, I'd call the police if my child ran away to Mary's house and my son is of age, and I would still call the police, because
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like,
Something's
there's just
not right
something not
there.
right. Oh my God, Gotcha Luck said the same thing. Something's not right up in that camp. So
No.
okay, well, since we obviously continue to talk about the show, even though we said we were going to talk about other stuff first, let's just get the rest of this out of the way, and then we'll come back to the Bravo tea. So, pretty much, we covered Mary. I mean, she had her cousin, Big Joe. Mary is the queen of shading her family members.
I mean,
She
oof.
said he is the worst contractor ever. He can do good work when he does it, but it may take him 6 years.
Yeah, but like she's talking about she hasn't done anything in her house for 20 years.
But maybe she's had him do stuff in the church or whatever, because that's the thing with their family, is that they're all like, especially from the background I've gotten on their family, they're all kind of like interconnected, because they have all these businesses and all of that stuff, which is why everything got super messy when Mama Redmond died, and then she has this young husband who doesn't seem like the brightest bulb in the box. And because Mama Redmond and Robert, believe it or not, had been married for almost 20 years. So she married this dude when he was like in his late 20s. And
So is this dude his brother or cousin? Because it looks like him a little bit.
well,
The
yeah, but I mean, I'm not really sure because there's a bunch of uncles and whatever, because it was an uncle and another cousin who we're going to see on the show later on because we saw them in the clips, who are the ones who were dropping dimes to all the blogs and people on YouTube last season, which is why I recognize that guy as the cousin because I've seen
Okay.
him on people's YouTube shows. But this guy, I mean, it's hard to tell. Maybe he is on Robert's side of the family because I can't figure out what Robert is for. I thought he was white, but the more I look at him, he just looks like a really light skinned black guy, or maybe he is, maybe he's biracial because I initially thought he was white.
Right, right.
So,
Mm,
and I
I
think by the end of the season, all of us were kind of like, well, maybe he's biracial because once you like see him more, he doesn't quite look, and then especially, the way he talks. But then again, hell, Eminem talks like that. So that's not really saying much. Um,
and
so
wasn't it a relief to see Mary's hair? Like
oh
her
my
scalp
gosh,
is probably like, yes, Lord. Yes.
why did I write that? I swear to you guys, those of you who are listening, and by the way, if you're still here, welcome, Feeling Segoy and LJ, maybe. So, but anyway, the first line of my note, since Mary was pretty much the first person we saw, I think Mary with no wig looks younger
Yeah, I think way better. She should stop it with the wig.
because she's actual, or just get a good wig. Folk wear wigs, just don't wear bad ones. And the
Yeah.
thing with Mary is she's itty bitty. And we know that, as they say, TV adds a certain amount of weight. So I can only imagine that in real life, she is probably the tiniest thing. And her face is very thin. So when she's got all that hair, especially when it's not good hair, it's a nightmare. And so,
Yeah, it's bad, but
but I
her
thought
hair
she
is
looked
cute.
a lot better. I mean, her clothes and whatever, and she makes the faces. She definitely, the next struggle that needs to be dealt with is the makeup. But and it's obvious she's had work done on her face, so because she just looks like a completely different human being altogether from the pictures that we saw. But
Yeah.
Mary is actually not a very, like, Mary is a reasonably young woman. Mary is like in her mid 40s. I'll look now to get her exact age, but Mary is like in her mid 40s at best.
But she couldn't be our friend. And I mean, I have a head full of gray hair, but nah, like she's very old ladyish in her being.
Now, of course, because it's Mary, because she's just as nutty as a fruitcake, the first thing comes up on Google. She has yet to reveal her specific age. But Mary but Mary was born between 1976 and 77. And it makes it and
So
it
she's
makes
younger than us?
oh yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm telling you. Mary that's, you heard me say mid 40s. And I knew that based on the research and all the information from last year, the timeline of the marriage, and then
Oh,
like with her mother leaving the church and whatever, because what we do know, which is why they were even able to narrow it down, is that Mary and Robert, as of when they first did season one, were married for about 20 years. And even though we saw it in 2019, they had recorded it late 2017, spilling over into 2018. The show had already been in the can for a whole year before we saw it, because Andy talked about it at BravoCon, the first and only one that they've had in 2019 because of COVID. So, excuse me, at any rate, we know that Mary and Robert, when she first came on the show, she said it. They had been married for, roughly 20 years, and that they got married when she was about when she was around 23, which was confirmed by her family members and ex-husband. So that's why we're able to pretty much narrow down her age. But yeah, Mary's a
Okay.
young woman.
Okay.
I mean, I
Well,
guess not in Bravo years, because on Real Housewives of Atlanta, they would call her an auntie. But on the white shows, Mary's a young woman for by their standards.
yeah.
And with her natural hair, she looked it. And quite
Oh,
frankly, with the right makeup, because they've got to counteract the plastic surgery she's gotten, she probably would look even younger. And let's call a spade a spade. She's always going to look young compared to her castmates as long as she doesn't do anything else to her face.
yeah.
Because
You're
some of
right.
the
You're right.
things they have done to their faces make them look like Frankenstein. Speaking of which, let's get to, well, we can go with Frankenstein 1 and 2. Let's go to, or someone who has, I'll be nice, who has had quite the Frankenstein-ish uh plastic surgery. And there's two of them. Hell, we could either go with Jen or Heather. Heather, really nothing to talk about when she met
Nothing.
with me. They met. We know what she's going to do. She's going to talk about Whitney. Really nothing there. You really didn't get anything kind of interesting with Heather until she and Jen met. So you got Jen. She's talking about her closet. She's in there. So more of Jen's closet. She has another random relative to let us know she's related to more people. I think one of the most disturbing things about that scene, or I'm not going to say one of the most disturbing thing about that scene, because I'm not hating on a fly ass closet. I mean, yeah, is Jen Shaw's or whatever, and feel however we want to feel about her, but hell, I'd take her closet. Um, but the most disturbing thing in that scene was when she called Heather and they kept showing Heather on her phone. And it was showing like whatever additional work Heather has had done to her face
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
last season and this season, because I think what they tried to do is like contour her jaw a bit, and it just ended up making her look harder. It was very like, I would have said that it sort of reminded me of oh my gosh, what is that show that used to come on? Not like He-Man or She-Ra, but it was like the real woman with the sword. She had black hair.
Right. I
It
know who
came
you're talking about.
I
She-Ra or something? I don't know, but
no, He-Man and She-Ra, but that's not it. But it was like the woman, she was, and the woman had an accent. She was from New Zealand. Um, but I know you know what I'm talking about. But
yeah, I do.
the more that I looked at her, I was like, no, that would kind of be an insult to that woman, because that woman was actually very attractive. She was just like a big woman. No, she kind of looked more like China from the WWE.
I just saw pictures of her, of Heather, when she was younger, and it made me sad
I
because
feel the same way about
she
Jen.
looks like she looks like a different person, and I can see why she's struggling
Yep.
because she's one of those people who probably traded very much so off of her looks, and
Um,
that's
well,
gone.
well, unfortunately, the reality of that is I don't even know if she had an opportunity to trade off her looks, because remember, she got married very young. She got married at like, I mean, I know she went to BYU, but based on how young she was when she got married, I think either she got married while she was in college or immediately upon graduation. So she probably didn't have an opportunity to trade on her looks very much, because she spent all of those hot years married.
Right, but you can trade off of your looks not necessarily with men, but even with other women
Well, and
in
that's
terms of being
definitely
a
true.
leader and whatever, but
And that's
it's just not
definitely
the case
true.
now.
because his family are big money, which means that they were probably very high up in the whole Mormon hierarchy. And she pretty much alluded to that when she talked about the history of his family last season. So you're right. It probably, especially when you see that he wasn't attractive at all. So the fact that even if the only dude she was ever with was him, she probably traded on her looks to even be with him because he came from a big money family. And then, of
Yeah.
course, that put her in a power position within among the young wives in the Mormon community, which is once again probably contributes to why she is so completely ostracized from everyone because they probably didn't like her. You know?
But you know what else was I thought was so funny tonight? The scene where she goes to Whitney, oh, we're dressed alike. And they were not dressed anything alike.
No, I mean, you both wore black. Okay. I mean, I wear black a lot. So, I mean, does that mean I was dressed like KK at the Met Gala?
I
I
mean,
mean, you know.
it was like hilarious. But Heather's I mean, none of their fashions are great. Like none of
Yeah.
them. None
No,
of
I
them.
think that the closest person that comes to the only person who comes close to wearing things that I like most of the time, and that hasn't been this season because they really haven't gone anywhere or done anything big. But based on last season, I typically liked Whitney. And and part of that is, she dressed her age and she wore like some cute pieces that could have been expensive or probably not, but she wore them well. So I consistently liked what she wore for her size, shape, and age because she's the baby of the group. And Lisa, she never gave us anything to like or dislike.
Right.
Because she was pretty much like what in turtlenecks and stuff. I don't know.
I
Um,
mean, she's basic. Basic.
yeah, exactly.
Her and Heather are basic. Basic.
Yes. Jen, there were things that I actually liked about and consistently like with the things that Jen wears. I think Jen, unlike Mary, because Mary has a bunch of designer stuff, but they're not good pieces. No matter
Right.
whether she wears them with tights or not, they're just not good pieces. I think the on the flip side, Jen's got good pieces. She just wears too many of them at a time.
Yes. Like it's a theme with her. Like
Yeah,
she
like
goes over.
she is the definition of that. I forget which was it, Coco Chanel or someone that says before you leave the house, take at least one thing off. Jen needs to
Yes.
take off about three or four.
Yeah, she does. She
Yeah,
does.
but the pieces wise, like even when they went to the luncheon and she had on the fur and the boots and the whole thing, piece by piece, I loved it. I love the color, and I'm a fur girl, so I love the color. I like the fur. I like the boots. I like all that. There just needed to be some editing somewhere. Her hair, I don't know. I'm sure she probably adds some pieces in it for volume occasionally, but even her hair, I like it. Like people talk smack about the box braids. I like those box braids. She's one of the few uh, people outside of a sister who rock the box braids, and I liked it. And maybe because her hair is actually thick.
Yeah,
Um,
I gotta tell you, the only Bravo show, and this is gonna sound so left field, the only Bravo show where I like the clothing is Southern Charm. That's it.
um, I think again it depends on the person because it's funny. Even Catherine wears some things that I'm like, you do the damn thing, Catherine, and then they will have a formal function and she will come like she is the madam at a Western saloon, and I'm like, where the hell did that come from? What are you doing? Even now with the blonde hair, I hate her with blonde hair. I want the red hair back.
Right. But
But yes, they do wear some stuff that I like, but Southern Charm's a tough one because there's so many of them that are just so freaking unlikable. The show that I like, I tend to like a lot of the clothes, and maybe because again, I'm a traditionalist when it comes to Housewives. I want the days of just seeing rich women doing rich women shit. So I like the fact that Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, even if they're going to somebody's house, they are wearing the money on their backs, and I am here for it.
yeah,
and
but why does Kathy Hilton dress like she's 90? She's not.
Not just 90, but a 90-year-old homeless woman.
She
So I mean, she's not as bad as the Olsen twins, but it's bad. But anyway, okay, let's come back. See, that's what shows. There was really nothing to talk about the show. So let's just go to the main event because I am really so not into. I'm over it with the Meredith and Jen debate situation. Hell, I'm over it just from you and I talking about it the other day. Like, there's just nothing left to say about it. Either Meredith, and again, I'm not saying she should, I'm just saying this is where we are. Either Meredith is going to forgive Jen or she's not. And either Jen is going to not just apologize, but actually take accountability to Meredith's satisfaction, or she's not. And again, I'm not saying that you have to apologize or take accountability to someone else's satisfaction. If you, in your heart, you feel that your apology and whatever level of accountability you have taken, you feel that it is sincere, and the other person still doesn't think that that's good enough, which they are 100% entitled to do, then that's it. Like, I guess this is just where we are. And
Yeah.
I'm good with that because I'm an adult and that happens. Hell, I've had that conversation even with my own husband. Just because you say my bad or I'm sorry or whatever doesn't mean that I'm supposed to go, all right, we're good. And, I just go back to being like, so what do you want for dinner? And not that I'm that type of person anyway. No, I accept what you're saying and I hear you. And I'm not going to like hold a grudge against you forever, because if that's the case, I might as well divorce you. But that just because you apologize doesn't mean that I'm going to get over it in 5 minutes and my mood is just going to suddenly change like a light switch or whatever. Or somebody could simply apologize to you, and whatever transgression they did, it's just not something that you deem acceptable on any level, and they apologize and you just say thank you, I'm just still never going to fuck with you forever, and that's that.
But I mean, but you cannot deny that underlying this is financial. So it's more like I'm not messing with her, but she's still in the show. She's still making money. And
Mm-hmm.
these people are making money with her by
Yep.
filming with her. And and they basically have daggers out for me. So I don't see her resolving this at any time. And it's kind
No,
of like a side drama. It's not going to be that interesting. It's not going to
no.
get the ratings they want, you know.
Exactly. It's
So,
not meaningful enough. And honestly, I know this is going to sound as if I don't have any empathy for Meredith, and that is not my intention. I just don't think people care enough. I don't think they care enough about her, and they damn sure don't care enough about Brooks that way, especially considering that, number one, Brooks started out with this narrative of being what appeared, well, let's say he started out with a narrative that appeared to be one of being the flamboyantly gay son. Then he sort of took a turn at, bratty privileged child, and then the whole fashion show with the one fashion. And then we're now taking a whole other realm, a whole other thing with which I do not think is going to play well with the LGBTQ plus community at all. We're now taking a whole other weird turn at, well, I never said I was gay in the first place. And so now we're going to pull back from the whole thing that got me noticed and sort of put me in the position of them trying to make me the sixth housewife. I mean,
Yeah,
because
well,
this boy left college for a semester to be there with his mom filming this show. They even gave him a confessional. So they very much were trying to make this whole Brooks Marks thing happen.
he was just the special bartender on the Andy
I
Cohen
saw that before
after
I came
show.
in, and I'm not gonna be, trade on stereotypes. I'm simply going to say, look at his outfit,
And
and
did
I'm just going to
yes,
leave
and
that.
did you
And
peep?
the hair was so awful.
But did you also peep their little commercial where they were introducing the Dear Evan Hansen?
I
Dixon
didn't.
Meredith?
I did not, because I was
Yes.
coming in for us to do our sound check. So I really only just watched that part so that I could get a better look at what Candace was wearing. I already knew we weren't going to like what Meredith is wearing, because that's standard not to like what Meredith is wearing. But can't in the commercial. I only got a piece of Candace's outfit, and I was like, I think this looks crazy, but I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. And no, it looked crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So I
That
think
whole aging pop star thing didn't work for Tamar, and it doesn't work for her. And Tamar was actually more talented. And even though to me, she is not a likable person, she actually had a stronger fan base of people who do like her. Candace does
yeah.
not have that. Mm-mm.
No,
and
no,
and
no.
and likability notwithstanding, she certainly doesn't have her talent. And you combine that with her age and the type of entertainer she is attempting to be. That is, I'm not saying that it can't happen, but it's a tough sell, because you are in your early 30s trying to do what you're trying to do what girls 10 years younger than you do. And at her age, if you're not like a Janet Jackson or a Beyonce, where there is a whole like spectacle involved, like Britney Spears or whatever, that like you're known for the big extravagant shows, Madonna as well. So it doesn't matter that you're 40 or 50, or in the case of Madonna, 60. That is what you are known for, so you can continue to do that. It doesn't work, because
Well,
right
she's
now
also
she's competing with Normani and Chloe Bailey,
yeah, she's not adding. There's nothing cutting edge about her. She's not adding
especially at her age. And I
anything.
hate to say that, because obviously we're women of a certain age, and it totally sucks, but the industry is what it is. We don't have to like it, but it's
But
we're
even
not
if
bad
you're
people for making it clear about what it is. And I'm not saying she can't get into the industry. I'm just saying doing what she does is a 10 years younger than her game,
yeah,
or
but
doing what she's attempting to do.
even if you're older, I mean, you can still come up with something that at least sounds new and fresh.
Oh,
This sounds like
absolutely.
this sounds like something that could have come out in the 90s.
It does. And that's my point. Something that could have come out in the 90s, and doing routines as if and videos as if it's the 90s as well. So it's like,
Yeah.
who is your audience exactly? Because again, Tamar was in her that's just a person, especially from reality and whatever. Tamar was in her mid 30s, and yes, she does do the like the little tiny outfits and the dancing and whatever, like pretty much the stuff that that Candace is trying to do. But to Tamar's credit, besides just imploding her career in other ways, she had, good producers that actually gave her good songs that fit a niche at that time.
Right, right. So I don't know. I don't
And
know
she
what the
had the
future holds
talent
for
to
her.
match what she's saying. So I agree with you. Where does that fit?
I don't know. I can't imagine anybody saying like, "Oh, did you hear the new whatever song?"
And
No.
is not original enough to create its own lane. Like a Jill Scott was original enough to create her own lane, although she also wasn't trying to, thought and bop either.
Right, right. You're right. You're right.
So, but anyway, I was, rabbit hole about Candace notwithstanding, I was tuning in to see the outfit because it looked a little crazy in the commercial, and I was right. Okay, so Meredith thing, we've tossed it in the pile. Jeannie, her husband's pressed about more kids. I don't think that's really anything to make a big deal out of, at least right now, for the purposes of this discussion, because it looks like that's going to be an ongoing thing with them that's at least going to be a substantial portion of her family oriented storyline. Looks like she's going to assert herself with the women, which I'm good with seeing, but at least as far as her home storyline, the tension between she and her husband about having kids is going to be a recurring theme, because we saw it in the preview. In the preview that we saw, they were outside in the snow. So this is going to come up again.
Well,
Um,
I gotta say, if this show survives this season, I don't think she'll be back. I mean, I don't know if this show will be back, but I don't think she'll be back.
no, they're all ready to film season 3, because as long as Jen Shaw is willing to do it, they are willing to film it. In fact, they were gearing up to, and this is some behind the scenes stuff, folks, they were gearing up for the possibility of jumping right back into filming season 3 on because Jen Shaw's trial was originally scheduled for November. Now
Oh,
that it is not scheduled for November, they can kind of breathe a little and just, do what they normally do, get about 3/4 of the way through the season so the women can get good and mad at each other again and then film the reunion. So,
yeah.
so that's what they'll be doing then. And it kind of works out probably for the network, especially given what we're dealing with in the real world, health wise and all of that, because with all of the delays with Atlanta starting to film, they don't expect Atlanta at this point to begin filming until October, November. So Jen Shaw's trial being delayed gives the Salt Lake City women a bit of a breather. But I think Jen Shaw's trial, no matter what happens this season, will single-handedly be, or the continuation of that will single-handedly be what brings this show back. And again, I think it's all a matter of how flexible Bravo is as they watch the ratings and all of that, because they gave it the best lead-in that they could give it by putting it on behind Potomac. They couldn't put it on behind Beverly Hills because Beverly Hills is ending. So it
Right.
would be a waste to put it on behind Beverly Hills. Potomac still has a fair amount of episodes left, although I don't know what else they really have to talk about either. Um, but again, in fairness, this is kind of the situation with all of the Housewives shows. The concept and the shows and what they continue to do in terms of it just being like, let's find some women and create some conflict to make them fight, is played out. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
and so I don't know if that's necessarily anybody's fault. And then, as I mentioned, the reason why I keep bringing up relationships is because you also have the fact that there is something that is inherently lost on any type of show like this, when there is no real relationship among the cast members. And in this particular case, like you brought up COVID, it didn't, that probably eliminated even opportunities for the possibility of them organically forming closer bonds, because they weren't in a position to get together even if they wanted to.
Right,
And
right.
since this cast left on such a bad note, they needed an opportunity to try to get together and be like, do what some of the other shows do. Because as some of the producers have said, even though it's very frustrating for them in terms of producing the show, these women get to a point where they figure out how to basically produce themselves, because they get together and sort of get in solidarity with one another and be like, okay, there are certain things we're just not going to do, and we're not going to let them catch us out there and do that. So they end up forming relationships, because it actually ends up being like an us against them, as it relates to for between the women and production, because they've been on the show, they've been in the business long enough to know that production's job is to make them look as terrible as possible. So,
Right. And I mean, speaking of like shows like that, I mean, we should talk about The Real Housewives of New York
yes,
and
yeah, because
that breakdown.
there's nothing else on this. Just one quick thing on Jen and Heather, because again, Jen and Heather go back and forth with this all seasons. I mean, all the time. So I really don't care about their whole little breakdown and fight. The only thing I wanted to mention is Jen and Heather once gave me what I want with my rich women doing rich women things. That ice castle thing was the bomb. Dot freaking com. I want to do that. Period. That's all I got
But
to say about that whole scene.
I would want my fire to be real wood. I'll just say that.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, for sure, and maybe that's maybe the whole um fire, the way that that's set up, is probably part of containing it in terms of containing the maintaining the integrity of the ice, I would think.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
they do it that way so that they can control the flame. So I would imagine that was it. And then just my girl Heather, always my girl when it comes to the food. She's like, why you throwing the churros on that joint? Heather does not play when it comes to the food. She ain't gonna let you not order some stuff. Even last season when she was like, I'm going out here to see Jen but watch my chicken wings. Heather does not play.
No, she doesn't. Or with the drinks. Or with the
Yeah,
drinks.
I'm not mad at that. Okay, so Real Housewives of New York are for those of you who may not know, and you'll see this, by the way, you'll see this link in the info box as well as in the description for this show. I have the daily talk where we are on Facebook. It's called the Fashion and Drama Diaries. Again, you'll see the link to join us over there. So many of you have, where we gossip and talk about all kinds of stuff in the realm of celebrity news, gossip, fashion, all of that stuff. So this story I talked about over there, but Missy and I felt it was important to bring up on Housewives Night. So now we're going to get into our Bravo-lebrities gossip segment. Real Housewives of New York. They are not having a reunion, and that is official, folks. Came straight from Bravo. So if you've heard the rumors all for the past couple of months, and it has been an ongoing discussion, they tried to blame it on scheduling and all kinds of stuff. What are these heifers doing? Is a pandemonium going on? Of course. I mean, and Ebony does a podcast and everything else in New York like every 3 days. So because I listen to it sometimes. So come on, they're all there. What's Luann doing, Missy? I mean, where is she at?
Absolutely nothing that
Exactly.
she can't fly back
Leah
and sit down on
McSweeney,
the couch.
if she has a man, he probably broke up with her already. So, because she's just annoying as hell. So they're all sitting up in New York. Plus, as we know, they get a check for that.
Right.
So they are not doing a reunion. Missy, give me your theory on why you think they're not doing one.
I think it's because Ramona will be exposed as being a MAGA nut. Because
But
if you
don't we
remember,
already know that though?
but all of this, all of this was taking place before the election and then before January 6th. And so when you're thinking that your brand as supporting Trump or whatever that is being in the
Exposed.
know,
Mm.
on trend or whatever, that's great. But then at the end of the day, when January 6th happens and it's QAnon and your brand or whatever that is that you're pushing is trash. Like she was trying to do the smart thing. Ramona's smart. She was trying to appeal to the biggest, widest base, which at the time seemed like it would be flyover
But
states who didn't
but
want to
is
wear
she
masks
really
and
smart though? Because when she carried on at the Black Shabbat, like, obviously she don't care about tripping on some black folks, but the way she carried on at that Shabbat, I was like, girl, you just woo, girl.
yeah, that was a lot. And I mean, you're right. She might not be as smart
She might a
because
couple of phone calls about that, I am sure.
you just made me think of something like the person who has been most unsuccessful at branding anything has been her. She tried to have a
Absolutely.
skincare, she tried to have a jewelry line, she tried to have her wine. Like
I'm
she's trying to
trying to
do a real
think.
estate.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I want to say that her and was it her and her? I want to say it was Ramona and her daughter, or maybe it was one of the other ladies and their daughter did the mask for. I know this is going to sound stupid.
Oh no,
Did the mask for Cynthia's wedding, or was that the other one?
I think that was Jill Zarin. Because
You're right. It was Jill Zarin and her daughter. They
isn't
I
it
guess.
sad that I know this? That's so sad that
Well,
I
it's sad that
I
we
know.
both knew it that it happened. I just didn't get the name right. And I am not as um I'm especially when it comes to Jill and Ramona because they're like the same person to me. I am not as on top of it with the New York girls. Like really this season with Ebony on there and all the drama that has gone down with that has probably been the most engaged I've been with New York in years because it was never really one that I watched religiously, even from the very beginning. Well, maybe in the beginning, because I did watch Bethany and her, watched her literally create Skinny Girl right under Bravo's nose.
Right, right, which was
um,
hilarious.
yeah, but other than that, and I Real Housewives of New York I watch in spurts because, of course, there's some YouTubers I love, and they, if they talk about it, I'm watching it. So I mean, they talk about it, I'm listening to it. So it's one of those shows that I keep up with and still know everything that's going on, but totally through the reviewers that I enjoy on YouTube and in podcasts. So I don't always like, some of the women, especially when they come and go, kind of throw me off. And
Okay.
and like I said, Jill and Ramona, like I know they don't look alike, but they're still when they're not there at the same time, they're the same person to me.
Okay,
So
but going back to Ramona, I think she also saw what happened to Kelly
yes.
and probably doesn't want to have to deal with any of that too. So
And
I
even though in not quite as a spectacular fashion, because they weren't around long enough to be as quite as big stars, or and I use that term loosely because we're talking about the reality world, not A list, B list, real stuff. Um, but still within their Bravo universe, obviously they are aware, so it's bigger to them, the stuff that went down with the various women in Dallas, because they had multiple incidents. In fact, as recently as a couple of weeks ago, I think Dallas is just a wrap altogether. They're not even going to try with Dallas anymore.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm almost 100% positive that I've seen that within the past couple of weeks that Dallas is just, they're like, screw it, because it's like, I think the issue with Dallas is that some of their main people, like they got rid of the one woman, but then they kept the other who did the whole Asian thing, and then of course that became a thing throughout the season. And then one of the Asian American woman that they brought on the show still said that, that the microaggressions behind the scenes weren't exactly micro. So then, things were still a problem. Then one woman's like husband was cheating, and she ended up in the sanitarium. Like, it's a whole mess. So, and of course, and again, didn't have the numbers. So I think that with Dallas, it wasn't just a matter of not having the numbers. I just don't think any of the women caught on as likable. And then you add to it that they were really effing up in the wrong social climate to be doing so. Um,
Yeah, because I think Trumpism as a brand on reality TV doesn't serve people well.
Yeah,
Like
it only works
even
on Big Brother. Like they seem to survive racism season after season, which is why
well, not
folks
this
are
season.
losing their freaking minds. I'm telling you, if you never saw racism, which I know you have, but if you want to see some fresh, homegrown, gutter level, like Ayala Van Zant said, gutter snipe racism, the Big Brother forums because of the cookout. As far
Right.
as they are concerned, these folks have committed the biggest form of racism, and of course it's because they feel that the black people now are racist, so it's a whole thing. But anyway, back to this. Bottom line, I agree with you. I do believe that this is absolutely right on the nose with why they are not going to be there. And I think for the other women, particularly Luann, who didn't exactly look all that great once or twice, nowhere near as bad as Ramona, but I think that there has been situations where at least Luann and what's the other one? Not
Who's
Dorit. Dorit is on Real Housewives
Beverly?
of
You're talking
Beverly
about
Hills.
Sonia? Sonia?
Sonia. That even though Sonia Morgan, even though Sonia was attempting, and in a lot of it, there, Sonia had several good moments in trying to in showing that she is at least attempting to be an ally. She had a few missteps as well,
Right.
not nowhere near Ramona and or Luann, but I think that
Only
this,
because she was apologetic. She was
and there
apologetic.
you go. And then I think that putting them in a reunion setting when they know that that is where everybody just lets their ish fly, and having Ebony unleashed, there was there's just no way they were going to do it. I think that this is not just a fear of being exposed in terms of, from Ramona's standpoint. I think that this is, other than Leah, of course, I think that this is also Luann, Ramona, and to a lesser degree Sonia, being afraid to be on the stage with Ebony talking about the stuff that went down this season, and possibly having her out talk them and there's just, when you look at some of the things that happened this season, there's nowhere positive really for those conversations to go, because we know that in order Ramona or Luann is not are not going to apologize, because for them to apologize would be them admitting that that there were some ways that they behaved that showed racist tendencies. At least for Ramona. Luann, I think it was more along the lines of some microaggressions, but that's still racism.
And I also think that probably Bershawn um, turned on Ramona at some point. So I know
Oh,
she won't
she
have a lot to
absolutely
say.
did.
And
Yeah,
she would probably expose how she was brought in randomly.
exactly. And I think that, and I don't even know if she necessarily meant to, but I think at one point she was like, "Oh, so I'm the token." And this other black
Yeah.
woman knows it, which is why she's not feeling me either.
And it's like really insidious how they did it. Like it's not a diss to Bershawn,
Yeah.
but
The only
Bershawn came off
downside
as
to
a
that is,
caricature.
yeah,
He came
the
off as
only
a
she
caricature.
did. The only downside to that is Broshawn kind of, exposing Ramona and sort of finding her moment in terms of being like, "Oh, I'm not going to be used in this manner," may have cost her an apple next year, because even if whether Ebony came back or not, I think Rashawn was definitely being auditioned.
Yeah, yeah. But
So
I but I
it'll be
mean,
interesting to see. I think in the grand scheme of things, if if the white women had to choose, again, Leah notwithstanding, they would choose Brashawn over Ebony.
right, but I don't think viewers would. I don't think viewers would choose
No,
Bershawn over Ebony.
no, viewers wouldn't, but like Andy said, at the end of the day, and that's probably one of the issues they're even dealing with the whole reunion thing, and in addition to Bravo being like, you know what, the viewers are hating this anyway, because that's another thing. Their viewership tanked, and of course the viewers, which we know are again largely white women, uh said that, most of what they were complaining about is the talks about race and all in social justice. But I think the problem is that most people conveniently forget, because these folks are not stupid, because again, many of these women have been watching these shows since the very beginning. Real Housewives of New York is for the most part older women, even though they tried to toss younger women in there. So their viewers are that show probably above all else, their viewers are made up of people, probably Beverly Hills to a certain degree too, are made up of people who have been watching the show from the beginning. So of course they're going to have falling off as people stop watching the show, because some of their favorite characters have left and blah blah blah. But they are white women of a certain age, and even though they are smart enough and have watched these shows long enough to know that it was filmed in the midst of one of a very turbulent time. So these were the types of discussions that people were having, especially if you had groups of people together who are not necessarily friends and picking up on each other's ish. um,
Right.
they're going to pretend that they're not, and that this, the viewers are going to act like, well, why are they talking about this? Because it was last fall, right before the election. Why do you think? But they're not going to look at it that way. This is no different than anything else, where a mirror gets turned on folks, and they'd rather just turn the mirror right back around instead of talking about what they see.
Right. No, you're
um,
right.
so, okay, so that is the Real Housewives of New York. Clearly, we're disappointed. The other news, really isn't news, it's sort of more rumor based, is the Real Housewives of Atlanta. There were rumors just all over this week about cast shakeups, who's coming, who's going. We started earlier in the week with a rumor that Cynthia was out and Kenya was out. Kenya came out about 2 days later. Of course, I could have told you that she's not going. She's not going anywhere. They'd be nuts to get rid of her. That's why after, put demoting her, they brought her right back. They're not crazy.
Right.
If
Right.
nothing else, love her or hate her, Kenya knows the assignment and she executes.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, it just is what it is. It's not even about team this one, team that one. If there is anybody who shows up to work and knows what they're supposed to do, it is Kenya Moore. And
Yeah, and
so,
she's good at antagonizing people. Very
yeah,
good.
but
So,
that's her job and she knows it. And it's very much a job because I haven't met one person who's met her in real life that didn't like her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it has been consistent across the board. I know 5 different people, and these are like not fangirl people, like grown women who have encountered her and said that she's perfectly lovely. Now, there's people who are going to be like, I don't really like her, whatever, whatever. And then from a mom perspective, if nothing else, I absolutely like fall in love every time I see that sweet baby. And
Yeah, the baby's
so,
cute. The baby is
yes.
cute.
And so anyway, so she spoke out. Candy didn't bother because I mean we already know she's got so many deals with Bravo in different directions, and or even like stuff that demands that she made that they actually move forward with, that she's not going anywhere. Even if she took a hiatus, I mean, from the Real Housewives of Atlanta to focus on her other show and whatever, the door is always open to her because that's just a relationship she has with Bravo. Cynthia, it would not surprise me if she left, and that's no shade towards Cynthia. It's not like the crap with Wendy Williams calling her, boring or whatever. Not that she's ever been the most exciting person. The most exciting thing about Cynthia, quite frankly, was Peter. But, again, love him or hate him, he was the most interesting thing about Cynthia, the fact that she was married to him. But, and again, he knew it too, because he's another one, wasn't even a housewife, but he knew the assignment. He was there to make
Right.
Cynthia interesting. So, but just that part, no shade at all towards Cynthia. The reality of it is that Cynthia's done everything that she could possibly do on this show, because since its core is drama and she tries not to be in it, and even when she does get a little bit in it, it just doesn't even feel right coming from her, because it just
Right.
genuinely does not appear to be her character. I know that Nene says there's 50 Cent and all this stuff. Well, anybody can get mad and, show that they gonna get with you if you piss them off. I mean, that's normal. I don't think that necessarily means that Cynthia just walks around on a regular basis being a hood rat. If she's sitting with her girlfriends and she talking shit, I mean, don't we all?
But the level of backstabbing, because they go beyond talking about each other. Like when
Oh
they
yeah.
outed, what's her face, the little light skinned girl, when they were like outing like her whereabouts and her address for her ex, like that was pretty, outrageous.
Yeah, but I'm just
You
saying,
know,
but ultimately, if Cynthia left, I just don't see it as a diss. She has been on since what, season 2 or 3, maybe season 3. So definitely had a long run. So she's made some cash. Hell, she's had not one but 2 weddings on the show, and
yeah,
I
and I
kind of
don't think
feel
this
like,
husband wants to be on the show. I don't feel like he really wants to be on the
and
show
he has
anyway.
a real job.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's actually got a real gig. And honestly, I just feel like it would be such a great departure, quite frankly, for her. She got her happily ever after. She is now officially in a position where she is with someone where she truly can be exactly what this show was about, a housewife, and just go
right.
off. Her man, LA, her daughter lives there now. Hell, even her ex-husband, who she seems to have a bizarre relationship with, is there too. So they just all go and be happy and weird and in love and whatever together. So good with that. A lot of talk about Portia Williams. There was in the last 2 days, it was like big headlines. Portia Williams fired. All the bloggers were talking about total crap. And then, of course, a day later, they were like, well, it's not exactly whatever. They were saying, oh, well, maybe she's in talks for Real Housewives of Lagos, Nigeria. No, she's not. If she makes an appearance on there, it's just because her and her soon to be husband like to be seen. And she is, I think she said, of one of her 3 weddings she plans to do in Nigeria. But ultimately, I think, I know, right? Ultimately, I think with Portia, as Missy and I talked earlier in our pre-show prep, I think that with Portia, it is just this is just part of negotiation. She's trying to pull a Nene. This is what
Right.
Nene did at the start of every season. She is just that the last time she pulled it, her luck ran out because the network was trying to get rid of people at the top of the pay scale anyway. So her holding out basically gave them a gift because they were like, okay, well, you could just do less. You could
Right.
have the same salary, but you're going to do less. So, of course, then you're going to make less because they started paying them per episode. So, so I think that that's what she's doing. She's pulling a Nene. And unlike Nene, who was not in a good position when she did it because there was really nothing that she was bringing in terms of storyline. She was in such a bad place with the women. None of them really wanted to film with her, et cetera, et cetera. I think that Portia, on the other hand, whether the women want to film with her or not, because Andy usually says that's when you kind of get the boot when nobody wants to film with you, they will make them film with Portia, because if Portia is on this show, that is, if not, it may not be the only storyline, but it's going to be one of the biggest, because again, whether you like Marlo or Kenya or not or whatever, they would not be doing their job on the behalf of the United States of America if they did not bring up the fact that they were barely out of the season before she was engaged to one of their minor castmates' husband from the season before.
Right. Right.
It is, they were not divorced. It was barely a month after he announced I'm sorry, after they did a joint announcement of the separation, and conveniently 2 weeks where he went on a rampage that no 57-year-old adult would ever do, going as a one-man wrecking crew on social media, talking about his wife when nobody even knew who the hell this man was, and why we should care about whether or not him and his wife were having issues, and whether or not she cheated on him. Because even when she appeared on Real Housewives of Atlanta, it was like 3 episodes, and the only thing he did was look like a creep standing by the pool looking at her guests in their
Well, I
bikini.
think he just always wanted to be. He's one of these people
Yeah,
who
but
probably
no,
always
but
wanted to
I'm
be on the
just saying
show.
how it was a run up to a setup, because he did it like
Yeah.
when he came out, it was like, okay, I mean, thanks for the tea that nobody is drinking. And then, like a week and a half later, the day after Mother's Day, we're trying to figure out whether or not him and the hot dog man are running a train on Portia. And the next thing we know, they're announcing an engagement.
The hot dog man. The hot dog.
I couldn't remember his name. Of course, after I said it, now I remember Dennis. But it
That
kind of works out for the whole train coming. So, anyway. And the
okay,
crazy
yeah.
thing is that the hot dog man literally looks like his little brother.
Yeah, you're
Like,
right.
I don't know if he's got some Nigerian family members, but Dennis McKinney looks like Simon Gubadia's little brother. And
Uh,
not just because he's younger and shorter, like they straight up look alike. I mean, Dennis still has a little bit of Jermaine Dupri in the face, but he still looks like it.
well, see, okay, so you turned me on to some news just here. Like, I didn't know there was going to be like a Real Housewives of Lagos
I
because I
think
do
there
have.
already is. If it hasn't already started, it was something that was already like going on because I've been looking at it because I love my Real Housewives shows from other countries because even though Real Housewives of South Africa is canceled, I mean Real Housewives of Johannesburg is canceled since that one lady put the other one in the hospital. I did start watching it and it is good.
Well, I will just say that like I'm obsessed with the Africa channel and they have these movies that come on that
Girl, you
are
better not. You better not, because we're going to have to do, guys. This is what happens when me and Missy get together because we still got to do the Bethany story. We are
okay.
going, okay, promise, we are doing an episode this week on all of our African movie watching because I didn't even know there was Africa Channel. No, Netflix has the bomb list of, did you know, like a whole thing of Nigerian and African and South African movies. And of course, you know what happens once you watch one, they all come flooding and then you're obsessed.
Well, the ones on Netflix are actually better budget than the ones on the Africa channel.
Trust me, not all of them.
No, trust. No, trust
Well,
me.
you
It
know
is
what?
like,
Okay, that's true because, like, usually it's the dramas that are done a little bit better, but the sitcoms, like, I swear you can literally see that the walls are like construction paper and tape. So,
but I still get super into it. There was this one where it was
oh,
this
I love them.
woman and they had to do like she was just so evil and messy and in everybody's business and they basically did an exorcism
You know what?
and
We're not going to talk about this because if we talk about it, then we're going to have to talk about King of Suns, which was the bomb, the series I saw a couple weeks ago, or the show that I told you to watch. Did you start watching it?
I haven't started watching it, but it's on
Everybody,
my list.
everybody who I told to watch it is like, oh my God, Johnda, we got to make sure this thing gets a season two. Is like freaking amazing. But
Well,
anyway, guys,
well, Real Housewives of Lagos. I can't wait.
oh yeah, and I'm gonna look. It may have already started because I feel like this was a discussion that I saw on another discussion board like a year ago. But then again, sometimes they're in talks for a while, and of course, we know that again, COVID is a problem everywhere. So, all right, now to the big news, and this is why it's great that you have two attorneys on, so stay tuned. This is one of those episodes where I'm going to have to put timestamps in. So, okay, this is some tea about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Now, we all know that Beverly Hills, the episodes have sort of caught up to where I was over a year ago when I first started talking to you all about the whole Erica Jane mess. And the filming, you can almost tell, well, not almost, you can literally tell when the show was filmed in relation to what was going on, because by the time a lot of the lawsuits were filed and the whole Tom Girardi and his quote dementia unquote came into play, that was really more of a October, November, December thing. Those lawsuits didn't begin to be filed until late October, early November, and then the hearings regarding his competency and all of those things, all of that stuff happened around the holidays. But her filing for divorce, yes, that was mid to late September, and then the LA Times article came out. So what is going to be even more interesting about where this situation is when we see the upcoming reunion, which was, as we know, just filmed about a week ago because we saw the horrible outfits, is that these women are going to have an immense amount more of information
Yeah.
when they come into that reunion. I mean, talk about guns loaded. Not only will they have a tremendous amount of information from their own networks and contacts, which clearly they have because they're all there in that community, and if nothing else, like Sutton, and she did exactly what I would have done. She called her own attorneys and been like, okay, should I even be filming with this heifer? Because that's what she really asked them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so not only will they have information from their own networks, but the mountain of legal filings and back and forth and articles upon articles. I mean, the LA Times on this has been on this like Woodward and Bernstein were on Watergate. It has been constant. And then let's not forget, they will have seen the documentary the documentary on Hulu that came out in what, June?
Yeah, that documentary was
Yeah,
devastating. Yeah.
exactly. So all of this information, because see, right now where we see them on the show, all they're doing is asking back and forth, like, what happened? Did you know? And all of this. By the time they get to have gotten to this reunion, that not only have they seen enough information to give them the side eye, give her the side eye as it relates to the did you know or didn't you know, but even more so, they will have enough information to know that whether she knew is completely irrelevant, because the cases that were ultimately filed were civil cases related to getting the money. And the fact that the money was misappropriated is no longer a question, it is a fact. So
Right.
where this situation is now is really just, it's kind of like a search and recovery mission, right? It's no longer it's kind of like when there's someone missing and you're trying to find them, and then after a certain period of time the police go, okay, well, based on the suspicion of how they went missing, we're no longer looking for that person in terms of, them being alive. This is really just a search and recovery mission so that you can lay this situation to rest. And that's pretty much what this is. We're just trying to see what you have so we know how much we can give to these victims versus
Right.
how much of a judgment to get against you that's going to follow you for the rest of your life. And they will also know how hard Erica and her attorneys have been fighting to keep certain things in her possession, as opposed to just saying, you know what, whatever, take it all. I'm not fighting. I don't give a crap if this doesn't belong to me, because of what he did. And obviously, all of that. We know in real time that she has not been doing that,
Right.
and her
Right.
castmates will also know that. So I'll start with that now. Where the plot thickens in terms of the tea this week is Bethany Frankel, who claims, you're going to love this, she claims that because she doesn't watch the show, that she only vaguely knew that this was going on. Now, girlfriend, come on. Like, it's if you're not still a part of the Bravo universe. And for the most part, has, even though she comes and goes from the show every 10 minutes, she only ever really says anything about her castmate. She's never done the full, like, set the bridge on fire behind her like Nene Leakes did,
Right.
and screw her whole relationship with Bravo. And to that end, since you have not set your full relationship with Bravo on fire, we know that you do keep in contact with at least some people, even if it's people on the production side, because she was a part of the family from the beginning, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's season one, right? Yeah,
Yep, she sure is.
yeah. So anyway, Bethany Frankel claims that she did not know about that any of this was going on, but once she was made aware that it was going on, welcome OJ. what she was aware it was going on. This is what she has to say about Erica Jane. So I'm going to let you hear it from Bethany Frankel. Now, this is on from Bethany Frankel's podcast, and give her a shout out. It's called Just Be, the letter B, with Bethany Frankel, and this is she's on iHeartRadio. So this is what Bethany had to say.
So Dennis Shields is my ex-fiance. He passed
away. Can you hear that okay, Missy?
He
yes.
owned a company called Law Cash. It was the largest funder, one of the largest funders of litigation in the country. And so funders of litigation, it's what happened with Hulk Hogan.
Letting you know her man's got a ton of money.
He won if he didn't have someone backing him in that litigation. Most people don't know this is even a business, and people don't like this business, but I'm just reporting the news. So there are these people that fund litigation. And so it happened, like Anna Nicole Smith, I think, had litigation funding. Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein may have, or they talk about it because they're not going to be able to afford their litigation. And, you know, it happens on every level. It happens.
And we know that Erica Jane's husband owns a lot of litigation places money.
John Morgan does it in Florida. He basically can get into an accident or class action suits, transvaginal mesh, things that happen from baby powder, like any of these kind of things, these big lawsuits that are class action lawsuits, mass torts. I'm getting complicated, but you understand what I'm saying. These lawyers do this. So John Morgan is one. I know a lot of them because I met them through Dennis, and I went to these sort of conferences with him, and I've met them, and some of them are billionaire lawyers, like major lawyers. Some have taken down, like the NFL, Volkswagen, Chinese drywall, like major shit, big tobacco. Okay, that's that kind of stuff. So Tom Girardi was a lawyer that worked in that space, which is why I've met him, which is why Dennis knew him. So Dennis had never seen the show. So this was in 2018. So Dennis and I watched the show, the Beverly Hills Housewives. I didn't watch this season. I dabbled. So he watched a little because he knew Tom Girardi and he knew of Erica Jane, because Tom used to send Dennis videos of Erica, and Dennis would be like a little uncomfortable. He would be like, watch it in your office when you're alone.
He would send him naked pictures, videos of his woman.
We once ran into, I met Tom at like a lawyers conference. I think it was in Florida or LA. I can't remember. I think it was LA, a lawyers conference. So I was aware of Tom, and also I saw Erin Brockovich, and I told Dennis that Erica said on the show that she spent $50,000 a month on her glam. And I also told him that her private plane, she had 2 private planes. And he said, what? And I said, yeah. And my experience is, especially with the Housewives, but everywhere as well, but really particularly with the Housewives, if someone's flaunting their money, they don't really have it. And a lot of that's happened with a lot of the girls on all of the shows. And I can tell you that in New York, people write that they have like $50, $75 million. All the girls have probably between like $4 and $8 million. And that's a lot of money for people, like, you know. And then there are ones that were on before that really don't have a lot of money at all.
Bethany don't give a damn.
They do. And particularly on Beverly Hills, there have been a lot of all show and no-go girls. And the more that
all show and no-go.
And the more that they, brag about it, usually there's something wrong. I've always found if you're really flaunting your money, then you probably don't really have it. So I was talking to Dennis about this, and I was, Christopher Buffalo, I know, is a friend of mine. He was doing her makeup, and she was spending a crazy amount of money. She said, this costs $50,000 a month. And I was like, holy shit, $600,000 a year.
Me would say the same thing.
I was like, that's rolling really deep, and that's just a nut that would be hard to sustain. And Dennis said to me, he doesn't have it like that. He owes me money. He owes me $500,000. I know this other guy, he owes $1.5 million. He doesn't have money. He owes everybody money. And I go, what are you talking about? How is she flying around on the big plane and small plane? And he said, it's not because he's using people's money to support her lifestyle. He's using the company's money to support her lifestyle. Dennis said this. And I said, what are you talking about? And now, don't get me wrong. I didn't know everything about specifics. I didn't know what kind of cases he was working on. I didn't know there was an airplane flight. I didn't focus on it that much. I just was focusing on the $600,000 a year.
I need to be using the audio effects on this going,
I said, why? Why did he do that? He goes, he can't say no to her. Dennis said he can't say no to her. Okay. So now we were away in New Orleans in May of 2018, and we went to meet these other like billionaire lawyers that Dennis knows, and also people that Dennis worked with who I know. I've mentioned it too. And it was a well-known
guys. That's not me
secret.
making noise in the studio. That's
it was
Bethany.
widely known, best kept secret. Like it was the worst kept secret. You know what I'm saying? So this
everybody
lawyer,
and their mama knew.
People into it. When Dennis said to him, because he doesn't watch the Housewives. So
but remember, he had over like 200 law complaints and bar complaints, and they were all dismissed.
$50,000 a month on her hair and her
right.
makeup. And the guy's like, "What? He owes everybody money. He's being sued by everybody." So it was a thing. So I knew about it. So I don't know. Like, that's just what happens. Things take a long time to come out, but everybody in that industry knew about it. All these major lawyers that I'm talking about around the country that are in this industry, they all knew about it.
Why aren't we in this industry?
I don't know, but
about it.
I feel like we need to get in it.
Yeah.
About it. Just to say, like, it's not what you think. You know, Erica, I met her at Christina Aguilera's birthday party. Erica performed. We had a nice, very great conversation. We like, you know, social media'd each other, and she sent me boots, which were great. And I think she's interesting. I met her. She came to my house because we did a crossover. I think she's interesting. I'm sure she has an interesting story. I think she's tough. I think she brings it with the fashion, is polarizing, and she seems strong, and she's had, you know, a unique history. I don't know her that well. And when I told it to Lisa Rinna and Kyle, I just said it like, they don't got it like that. Like, it's something, you know, her husband.
There you go. She told Lisa Rinna and Kyle.
He owes a lot of people money that he
in 2018.
So,
right.
Came out, I don't know, during the pandemic last year. I didn't even really know about it. Andy called me and he goes, "Holy shit, you really do know it all." He's like, "You told me about this years ago." I'm like, "Yeah, I told you."
Boom.
Like, no, hashtag I know it all. So,
oh my goodness.
I'm going to use that hashtag. Hashtag I know it all.
Wow.
2018, I knew about this. So, definitely, because we all were away that summer. It was the summer.
Boom. So, Bethany out there dropping bombs, and of course, you know, Erica Jane has had something to say since then or whatever. I don't care what she has to say about any of this, because we all, you know, what we do know is that there was $25 million transferred from that law firm into EJ Global, which is her company. And when tax, just like Teresa Giudice went down, because whether she saw him or not, and we know she's daft, and she signed tax returns, and the court had no sympathy on her, whereas Erica Jane, you know, with her expensive to be her behind, comes off letting you know that she's the know-it-all and whatever. Now all of a sudden, you know,
she doesn't know anything.
She doesn't know just anything or whatever. But again, it doesn't even matter. If you didn't know then, you know now. And even back is in December, when she went on that fancy, set up a page on that ultra high end clothing, like consignment auction site, to sell off her stuff, and the lawyers had to go in court. The lawyers for the plane victims had to go in court and get that shut down. So you knew enough to try to sell your stuff off.
Right.
You know, and why are you in a $9,000 a month apartment?
Well, that's just for show, because
of course,
as soon as filming wrapped, she's somewhere else now, for real.
I don't know if she's gonna come down off that 9,000, and they didn't do any filming in her department, in her apartment, so it's not like she needed the apartment for show. They haven't gone to her house. They haven't gone to her house or her apartment. But I tell you what, whatever she's doing, the money is hitting real different, because her reunion attire, it wasn't even a matter of whether or not you like it from a taste perspective. That ish looked cheap. She was looking real Deb shop.
But they did go to her house. They did go to
Oh, they
her
went to
house.
her apartment? I
Her
can't even
house.
remember that.
Her
Huh?
house where she's her house where she's renting. They went to the
Okay.
house that she's renting, and she had a little lunch
Oh,
near the
okay.
pool or whatever, and she was so apologetic about like the size of it and everything, but
Oh,
it's
please.
still way bigger than like a normal person.
And certainly one person who most
Yeah.
of their things, whatever they were allowed to take, or whatever, in her case, what she took out the house, because remember, when she filed for divorce, it was before everything went into receivership, which means that she's probably got a nice storage locker somewhere with some things, in which case you don't need that big of a place if a good portion of your stuff, until it gets seized, is in storage anyway.
Well, one of the things that she was trying to say on that show was like that she left everything, that she only took a couple of things. So they show like how she decorated in the house. It's like a couple of things she took from the house, but she
Yeah,
left
but
everything else.
her personal items she certainly took. um
Yes,
you
she
know
took stuff. She said that she only took these things and left everything else. But
yeah.
trust and believe that she took stuff that no one will ever see again.
Oh, absolutely, especially the
Yeah.
jewelry. If there are pieces of jewelry, particularly items that they, and I'm sure because Tom is no idiot even now, I am sure that there are probably pieces of jewelry that she may or may not have thought he insured, that he deliberately didn't, in order to keep them off the radar. Because if there's, depending on where or how he bought it, whether he got them at auction, or hell, even if you are you at a high-end store or a jeweler, most of these places pride themselves in customer service, and part of good customer service, especially with high-end clients, is discretion. So if there's jewelry and other items that both of them have, that they didn't get insured because that would keep them off the radar, those things you're certainly never going to see again, because there's nothing to prove that they still have them.
Right.
Because, even if you could say, we see that you bought it, if you say it was lost, given away, whatever, it doesn't even fucking matter. The point is,
Right.
if you say, I ain't got it, and there's nothing else to trace it to you, you ain't got it.
Right. Right.
And because
But
I ain't got it could be as simple as it is at your mama's house. But if she
all
knows she need to hide it too, I mean,
all I know is that she has the rest of her castmates shook because I think
oh, for sure.
all of them think that their ride could never end, and it just has all of them rethinking
And
it
that's
all.
and that is the biggest thing right there for some of them in particular. Now, Dorit, she already knows that the ride could end because of
Right.
what she went through with PK, which is why the scene between PK and Mauricio was funny as hell when they was sitting there straight joning on her.
Right. Right.
And Dorit couldn't help but laugh because that ish was funny.
Yeah, it was funny. It was
And
funny.
PK is 100. Why does he know? Because he's a crook. Like they've been through
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, he's definitely a crook. The I forget her name, the new girl, the Asian girl.
Oh,
I bet you
Crystal.
she went home. I bet you she went home and had a whole big discussion.
Oh, I'm sure. Because, I mean, she was, married him in her early 20s. So she very much needs to have a whole big discussion, because she married him in her early 20s. And he was already good and old. So, he ain't let her get her hands on handling any of the finances. She don't know where her next meal is coming from if something happens with them, other than the fact that, well, she has a prenup and some kids. So, in some respect, if him and her were to break up, then she thinks she knows where her next meal is coming from. But again, because we know for sure he ain't letting her control the money, she really doesn't. because even if they break
Okay.
up and the prenup says he's got to do this, or the judge says he's got to pay this amount in child support, if he finds himself in a Tom Girardi situation, you can't pay what you ain't got.
Now, the person who I appreciate the most out of all of them for just being upfront, honest, and consistent is Garceau. What's her first name?
Yeah, it's Garcelle.
Yeah,
Garcelle, and I actually am not hating on the fact that Sutton either, because I feel like they keep throwing Sutton under the bus, trying to force her be more confrontational than she's comfortable being. Sutton is not there. There has not been a point where Sutton has lied about what she said, but there is a difference between how you talk about something when the person isn't there versus how you talk about them when they are. Even if you tell them to their face what they said, you're probably going to soften it a little bit, especially when you know that person is an antagonistic ass.
but Garcelle is the same way, really, with all of them
Well,
in
no,
their face.
I agree with that. I'm just saying that
Yeah,
Sutton has no. Garcelle is the queen of this season, no doubt.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm saying like second to Garcelle in terms of being forthright with her concerns. I think Sutton has done that. I think that Kyle and Lisa and them are such mean girls, and they kind of have it out a little bit for Sutton anyway because she got more money than them, that they're putting 20 on 10 when it comes to trying to make it seem like Sutton is saying all this stuff behind Erica's back that she's not willing to say to her face. And I don't feel like that's the case. Just because I'm not using the same exact word, syntax, and color that I used last night versus today, it doesn't mean you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that I'm holding back. I'm still telling you, I got some concerns. Your shit sounds crazy, blah, blah, blah. Like,
But
you
can I ask a question though
uh-huh.
about all of these shows? All of these shows. Why do people feel like they're entitled to information about other people's lives? Like, I may or may not share my personal life with people I'm friends with,
Yeah.
but that's on me. Like,
Well, I think that the difference with it is that on these shows, unlike real life, it's supposed to be about your life. And some cast members feel like, and we've seen it on these shows, including Beverly Hills, some cast members probably feel like they share more than others, and our job is to do this. And then we also can't discount what production does behind the scenes in terms of how they, basically script and coach the women and use one woman to try to get information out about another woman, and tell them things that they've heard from the other women. And because if you watch closely, there are instances where you can absolutely tell that production probably told one of them what the other one said
oh,
about.
right, right.
And
But it's
so,
weird because if somebody never in my life, and I have several friends, even close friends and family members that have gone through this, you know, where they finally say they're getting a divorce, but they were never all about the details of whatever led up
oh,
to the divorce.
absolutely.
And I've never said, "Oh, I'm mad at you because you were never telling me about all this horrible stuff."
Oh, no, and I agree. I think that this is all 100% for the show because, again, some of this that we see when these women do this, we know based on when they came, how they were we know either based on how they were introduced into the show, because then we see sort of whether or not they're like, hey, girl, versus, oh, let me introduce you to, or just in stuff we see behind the scenes or interviews they do or whatever. We know that a lot of times they are not friends, they have no relationship whatsoever, or even if they are like, uh, even if they consider themselves friends, not all of them are friends on the talking on the phone every day, telling you
Right.
everything that's going on between me and my man kind of friends. Literally, the only people to me, in all of Housewives history that I think ever had that relationship, and some of the other ones probably had, but I'm just saying the ones that come to mind famously that had that relationship is Needy and Kim, which is why I think that their breakup was so painful for the two of them. Um, uh, it was, and then why it was so visceral. Needy and
Yeah.
Kim, the Manzo family, and Teresa,
Oh yeah. Oh
especially
yeah.
particularly Teresa and Dina, which is why Teresa and Dina ultimately did find their way back to each other, because I think the closest friendship always was between Teresa and Dina, and then Caroline is the older sister. But it's obviously makes more sense because Teresa and Dina are closer in age. Tamra and Gretchen, and
Mhm.
while not besties but still close, Lisa and Kyle, which again is why I think their breakup was more painful than the rest. And I also think too, on the shows where the women truly do have real money, or even if they don't have money, they have position or notoriety, like like in with the Beverly Hills women, where Kyle might not be as rich as a Lisa Vanderpump, but because of who her family is and their longevity in Hollywood, they are still connected to the people with money. I
Right.
think that some of them are oddly friends despite age differences and stuff, particularly the Beverly Hills women, or at least aware of one another or acquaintances with one another, because the community is very small in terms of the people on their level. Like,
Right. Right.
not there's a lot of people in Hollywood with money, but there's still levels to everything. Like, there is money, and then there's Adrian Malouf money.
Right. Yeah, you're
So,
right.
so I think that impacts the relationships too, and it also impacts their ability to form meaningful relationships and connections, even if they just met on the show, but after they're on for a while, they end up becoming genuine friends, like Portia, Candy, and Phaedra, who did truly become friends because they were in the same age range,
And
like
Atlanta is a
and
small
whatever.
place.
And it's
Atlanta is a small
exactly,
place.
and that was the other thing I was going to say. And even smaller for people in certain industries.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah, and so it makes a difference. But at any rate, that is the